November 25th, Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end, evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. My cherished soul, something has shifted in the unseen realm, and Archangel Michael is stepping forward with a warning wrapped in divine fire. The message, connected to November 25th, Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end, evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately is not meant to comfort first, it is meant to wake you. And the moment you opened this, your spirit felt that pull because this message was assigned to you before you even knew it existed. Today is not like other days. This moment is not like other moments. A curtain is being opened in the spiritual world, and Archangel Michael is revealing something that normally remains hidden behind divine barriers. You are about to hear a revelation that is alive, moving, breathing, something that has been circling your life for months, waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed. And that moment is now. He speaks, I guard you without end, but I cannot guard what you allow to remain open. Evil moves without pause. Your faith and your action fuse with my protection. Listen closely. There is an energy around you that has been trying to break in, not through force, but through subtle openings. Open doors, emotional fractures, unspoken fears, unfinished cycles. And the reason Michael is speaking so urgently is because one of those openings has become visible in the spiritual realm. Something, or someone, has sensed it. But before fear tries to grip you, hear this clearly. You are not unprotected. You are not abandoned. You are not left to fight alone. Archangel Michael has been standing at your gates, guarding the boundaries of your destiny. Yet what he sees from his vantage point is something you may have been too tired, too overwhelmed, or too distracted to notice, a movement of darkness that does not rest. It does not pause. It does not hesitate. But neither does Michael. And neither should you. There is a reason he says your faith and action complete the shield. It means you are not just a spectator in your own story. You are part of the strategy of heaven. Your decisions, your prayers, your clarity, your courage, they activate the rest of the protection assigned to your life. Without them, the shield is present, but not complete. With them, nothing, and no one, can strike you. He shows me a vision of you walking into a new chapter, but something from the old chapter keeps trying to follow you. It may look familiar, a person, a memory, a habit, a fear, but its intention is not what it appears to be. This is why Michael is speaking with such urgency. Something is trying to reattach. Something is trying to reopen what heaven already closed. And today, on November 25th, the timeline shifts. A divine confrontation begins. A very old spiritual cycle reaches its breaking point. Michael says, evil will strike without pause, but it cannot penetrate a closed gate. I need you alert. I need you awake. I need you aligned. For the danger is real, but so is your calling. Feel this deeply. Every word is meant to position you. Love frighten you. Strengthen you. Because what is coming next in your life is too big, too sacred, too destiny-filled to allow any old shadow to sneak in. Heaven is protecting a new blessing, a new opportunity, a new transition that is forming around you. And every time a divine elevation approaches, so does spiritual interference. Not because you are weak, but because you are chosen. Michael shows me a barrier of blazing light forming around you. But the barrier is not static. It responds to you. When you rise in courage, it expands. When you return to clarity, it strengthens. When you refuse the old patterns, it glows hotter. And when you trust the message being delivered right now, it seals. He says, do not be afraid of what moves in the dark. Be afraid of ignoring what moves in the light. That is the warning. That is the activation. That is why you were called to open this immediately. Something in you already sensed the urgency. Something in your spirit knew there was a message you could not risk missing. And you were right. Because this is not about fear, it is about positioning. It is about alignment. It is about closing the last open doorway through which spiritual interference has been trying to reach you. As this message continues, your spirit will understand exactly what needs to be done, what to close, what to break, what to reject, what to declare, and what to step into. Stay with me, because the next revelation Michael is preparing to release is the turning point. The moment where clarity becomes power, and power becomes protection. Hold steady now, the next unveiling is where everything starts to make sense. Type "I'm under heaven's shield" in the comments if this is speaking to your spirit. Blessing code 144 is now activated. Before you even think of scrolling, stay close. The next unveiling is where the hidden truth finally rises. My awakened one, there is a trembling in the spiritual atmosphere around you right now. It is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it carries the weight of something ancient being confronted and something divine being released. Archangel Michael stands near you with his sword drawn, not in threat, but in readiness. His voice echoes with authority as he continues the message connected to November 25th. Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end, evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately. He shows me a vision of your path, illuminated, yet surrounded by shadows that linger just beyond the reach of the light. These shadows are not random. They are remnants of battles you have fought, wounds you have healed from, cycles you have survived. Some of them whisper old lies, hoping you will believe them again. Some of them replay memories, hoping you will reopen a door heaven already shut. And one of these shadows has been moving closer in recent days, sensing your upcoming elevation and hoping it can pull you backward before you step forward. But hear this clearly. It cannot overpower you. It cannot overshadow you. It cannot undo what heaven has established. This is why Archangel Michael speaks with urgency. He wants you to understand what is approaching, not to fear it, but to defeat it with awareness and authority. He says, what seeks to strike without pause is weaker than it appears, but it is persistent. It waits for exhaustion. It waits for distraction. It waits for hesitation. But it cannot withstand certainty. Your faith is not simply belief. It is a spiritual weapon. And your action is not simply activity. It is a divine seal. When he said, your faith and action complete the shield, he meant that heaven has already built the wall around you, but you must close the final gate. You must seal the entrance where old patterns have been trying to return. Michael shows me an image of you standing before an unfinished wall. Around you is brilliance, calm, clarity. But on one side, a small gap remains, a space that looks harmless, yet through that gap, spiritual interference hath been slipping in. This interference shows up as sudden anxiety, unexplained heaviness, unexpected conflict, emotional waves that don't match your thoughts, or people reappearing at the exact moment you start rising. These are not coincidences. These are signals. These are signs. This is the reason heaven is speaking now. Michael says, close the gap and the enemy loses access. Do not underestimate the small things, for the enemy enters through cracks, not through open gates. The moment he spoke this, I felt a shift. A tightening of spiritual borders around your life. A strengthening of your divine perimeter. This is heaven preparing you for what is coming. Not to endure, but to conquer. You are approaching a breakthrough that is not gentle, is fierce, is rapid, is destiny-driven. And breakthroughs of this magnitude attract resistance. Not because you are weak, but because you are stepping into something the darkness hoped you would never reach. Michael reveals something else, something deeper. There is a spiritual assignment over your life that you have not fully recognized yet. Your presence carries light that disturbs what is hidden. Your steps carry authority that disrupts what is dark. Your voice carries clarity that interrupts deception. That is why you have been targeted in certain seasons, why you have felt unusual pressure, why certain people reacted strangely around you, why certain failures came in patterns. But that season is ending now. Heaven is righting the atmosphere around you. And Michael says, you have survived what was meant to break you. Now you must close what was meant to drain you. He draws your attention to 3 things that must be sealed. First, an emotional door. Something or someone that stirs old wounds in you must no longer have access. You cannot carry old pain into new destiny. Second, a habitual door. A pattern that once brought comfort but now brings confusion must be broken. You cannot elevate while carrying what weakens you. Third, a spiritual door. A space in your environment or your inner life has been left unguarded. This must be closed through clarity, intention, and alignment. When you close it, everything shifts. Michael stands as witness and protector. He is not simply guarding you. He is training you to guard your own spirit. You are stepping into a season where you will not just be defended, you will be empowered. And something remarkable is happening even as you listen. The moment your spirit leans in, something ancient within you awakens. A knowing, a strength, a recognition. You are not hearing this message by accident. You were drawn to it because your destiny demanded it. Heaven arranged it. Michael confirmed it. And your spirit recognized it. Now, before the next revelation unfolds, Michael says one more thing. What comes next is the key to sealing what must be sealed. Do not miss what is about to be revealed. Keep your heart steady. Keep your mind open. The unfolding is just beginning, and the most crucial part is about to arrive. Hold your position. The next message carries the full force of clarity you have been needing. Type "My gates are sealed" in the comments if your spirit is awakening to this message. Blessing code 229 is now released. Stay right here. The moment ahead unlocks what your next season desperately needs. My resilient soul, there is a stirring rising within you right now, a vibration you can almost feel beneath your skin. It is not imagination. It is not coincidence. It is the movement of heaven drawing closer as Archangel Michael continues to reveal what has been concealed from your understanding for far too long. This message tied to November 25th. Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end. Evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately. Now enters its most critical unveiling yet. What comes next does not just explain the battle around you, it explains the shift happening within you. Michael shows me a scene, you standing in the middle of 2 realms. On one side, there is a familiar darkness trying to reclaim influence over your emotions, your relationships, and your clarity. On the other side, an overwhelming light is pushing forward, stretching, expanding, pressing through every weakness, every fear, every doubt. You are caught between what once held you and what is now calling you. And this tension is not a sign of confusion. It is a sign of transformation. He says, you have outgrown the shadows, yet the shadows have not accepted it. This is why certain old patterns suddenly resurfaced recently. This is why spiritually dormant people became strangely reactive toward you. This is why you felt a strange heaviness during moments that should have felt peaceful. This is why confusion tried to slip into your thoughts even when nothing was wrong. You were shifting. Your spirit was rising. Your destiny was recalibrating. And whenever heaven elevates you, the darkness makes one final attempt to pull you backward. Not because it believes it can win, but because it hopes you will accept defeat before you even realize you have already crossed the threshold. Michael shows me a spiritual contract, an old agreement you never consciously made but subconsciously lived under. This could be a pattern of self-doubt, emotional weakness, or a belief that your life must always come with resistance. Heaven is tearing this contract apart. What once fit you no longer fits. What once harmed you now repels you. What once tracked you can no longer locate you. But the enemy senses the shift too. It senses your awakening. It senses your authority. It senses your new assignment activating. This is why evil attempts to strike without pause. It wants to exhaust you into making emotional decisions. It wants to irritate you into speaking words that weaken your spirit. It wants to distract you long enough for you to forget how close you are to breakthrough. But what it does not understand is that you are no longer a vulnerable target. You are a rising warrior walking with an archangel who does not miss a single movement in your atmosphere. Michael steps closer and says, "The danger is not the attack. The danger is the distraction." Let these words enter deeply. The enemy cannot overpower you. It cannot dismantle your blessings. It cannot shut what God has opened. But it can try to pull your attention away from what heaven is building. This is why your faith and action matter now more than ever. Faith is the alignment. Action is the seal. Every decision you make from this point forward becomes part of your spiritual shield. When you choose clarity over confusion, the shield strengthens. When you choose discipline over temptation, the shield thickens. When you choose silence over reacting emotionally, the shield rises like a wall of fire. And when you choose to trust heaven's timing, the shield becomes unbreakable. Michael reveals another image, a doorway behind you that keeps trying to reopen. It is connected to something you have already healed from, someone you have already outgrown, or a phase of your life that no longer matches your spiritual frequency. But because you are ascending, the past senses it is losing its grip and tries to pull you back by reminding you of memories, feelings, or unfinished conversations. These are not signs to return. These are signals to close the door completely. He says, what you walk into will not tolerate what you walked out of. Close the door. Do not entertain what drained you. Do not revisit what broke you. Do not re-accept what heaven removed. Your next season requires a new version of you, awake, aligned, protected, decisive. And Michael stands prepared to defend you, but he needs your agreement. Not your fear. Not your worry. Your agreement. He says, stand in the light, and I will stand beside you. Take the step, and I will clear the path. Make the choice, and I will seal the gate. This is your turning point. This is your activation. This is where you rise. And as this message continues, something even more powerful is about to be revealed, a divine clue about who or what has been spiritually monitoring your life. This next revelation will explain the pressure, the timing, the patterns, and the sudden emotional shifts you have felt. It will expose what has been hidden. It will illuminate what has been disguised. It will break what has been binding. Stay close, because the next unveiling carries the sharpness of Michael's sword. Truth that cuts and truth that frees. Before we continue, take a breath, ground your spirit, and prepare for the next wave. What comes next changes the atmosphere around you. Type "I rise with Michael" in the comments if this message is awakening your spirit. Blessing code 311 is released over you now. And before you move ahead, raise the light of this message by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. When you amplify this word, you help break chains for others who desperately need this guidance but haven't found it yet. You who are listening carry a rising mantle, and every time you help spread this light, you join in heaven's mission. When you sow into this work, you are not giving to a channel. You are sending oil into lamps that guide souls out of darkness. God says, "What you release for my kingdom, I return in overflowing measure." I feel stirred to say this to you personally. If your spirit whispers to take action, this is your moment of obedience. Just as Archangel Michael guards without pause, your support becomes part of the shield that pushes this message into the lives of those under attack. Your seed becomes a prophetic act that opens your own heavens. Use Super Thanks membership, or the PayPal link in the description to release your offering. Now rise and obey. Let your light join this mission. My vigilant soul, as we step deeper into this revelation, the spiritual atmosphere around you becomes more defined, more sharpened, more intentional. Archangel Michael is not speaking in riddles today. He is speaking in precision. Every word unfolding in this message tied to November 25th, Archangel Michael says, "I guard you without end, evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield." Open immediately is a direct response to the movement of unseen forces surrounding your life. Now, the next unveiling arrives with the weight of truth that you were meant to hear long before today, yet the timing had to be perfect for you to receive it. Michael brings your attention to something that hath been hiding in plain sight: the spiritual monitoring around you. This monitoring is not about fear. It is about awareness. There has been an energy, an influence, a presence, not constantly, but in moments, cycles, and patterns, that has been tracking your emotional responses, your spiritual progress, and your personal breakthroughs. Not because it holds power over you, but because it fears what you are becoming. He says, "What watches you is weaker than what protects you. But what watches you is persistent." Persistence is not strength. Persistence is desperation. It is a sign that the darkness knows it is losing its grip. Michael shows me a spiritual map of your path, the events of your past, the emotional scars, the victories, the setbacks, the divine appointments, the unexpected breakthroughs, the near misses. Every moment on this map is glowing with spiritual significance. And the more your destiny glows, the more resistance tries to attach itself. This monitoring appeared in subtle ways. Something felt off when nothing was wrong. A heaviness came upon you out of nowhere. A sudden tension erupted with someone close to you. Your sleep was interrupted for reasons you couldn't explain. Your mind wandered into thoughts that weren't your own. These were not random moments. These were attempts to read you, distract you, sway you, or weaken you before you stepped into clarity. But here is the truth Michael reveals now: they cannot enter unless your gates are open. And you are learning to close every gate. That is why this message was delivered to you today. Heaven is repositioning your awareness. You are not meant to fear spiritual monitoring. You are meant to expose it, overpower it, and end its influence. Awareness is the first strike. Action is the second. Faith is the final seal. Michael continues, "You have been rising faster than you realize, and the darkness has been trying to predict your next step. But it cannot predict what is guided by heaven. It cannot interpret a destiny written in divine fire. That is why you have survived every recent emotional storm. That is why confusion lost its hold. That is why depression failed to drown you. That is why fear couldn't anchor itself. That is why isolation did not break you. Because you were not walking alone. Michael was standing at your gate every time. He now reveals something even deeper. A cycle you keep escaping. This is a cycle the enemy hoped you would repeat forever. A cycle of emotional exhaustion, spiritual numbness, or relational disappointment. Every time you rose, something tried to pull you back. Every time you healed, something tried to reopen the wound. Every time you gained clarity, confusion tried to overshadow it. But now, on this day, in this moment, Michael is declaring the cycle finished. He says, what once repeated must now be broken. Your spirit is too awakened to walk back into old patterns. This message is not just a warning. It is a release. A release from unseen attachments. A release from silent monitoring. A release from emotional entanglements. A release from spiritual fatigue. A release from patterns that drained your light. And now comes the most important part of this unfolding. Michael says the next movement in your life requires you to strengthen your spiritual borders. Heaven will guard you, but you must also guard what enters your mind, what influences your decisions, what occupies your heart, and what stands near your destiny. This is not about paranoia. This is about spiritual maturity. He speaks again. Your elevation is visible in the spirit realm even before it manifests in the natural. That is why resistance came early. But do not fear what saw your future. Fear giving it access. His truth pierces deeply. Because it explains so much. It explains why people who never cared suddenly reappeared. It explains why certain energies tried to attach to your emotions. It explains why certain voices grew louder when you tried to move forward. It explains why your spirit felt the need to retreat, rest, reset or rise. You were being prepared. Heaven was covering you. Michael was guarding you. And now the message turns sharper. Michael shows me a sword pressed into the ground, the universal symbol of spiritual authority. He says, place your boundaries with the firmness of this sword. What no longer aligns must no longer remain. This is not just about people. This is not just about emotions. This is not just about habits. This is about spiritual authority. You are stepping into a divine alignment where your yes carries power and your no closes spiritual gates. And once this message enters your spirit fully, the darkness will no longer find openings. The monitoring will cease. The interference will lose access. The heaviness will lift. The confusion will dissolve. The cycle will break. Because you will no longer walk with uncertainty, you will walk with spiritual discernment sharpened by heaven itself. Prepare yourself, because the next part of this message will dive into the exact source of the interference and the next step Michael needs you to take to seal your atmosphere completely. What you are about to hear will give you authority over what once intimidated you. Type "I close every gate" in the comments if you can feel the shift within you. Lesson code 909 is activated. Hold steady, the next revelation exposes the hidden root. My rising warrior, there is a divine intensity surrounding this moment, as if heaven itself has leaned closer to ensure you do not miss what is coming next. The message tied to November 25th. Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end, evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately. Now enters the phase where the hidden root begins to surface. You have been sensing things without having a language for them. You have been noticing patterns without fully understanding their source. You have been feeling spiritual pressure that your spirit recognized long before your mind could explain. Today, Michael brings that root into the open. He begins by showing me a vision of a thread, a long, dark thread woven into the atmosphere around you. This thread is thin but persistent, barely noticeable, yet always present during moments of vulnerability. Sometimes it connected to a memory, sometimes to a person, sometimes to a fear, sometimes to an insecurity you thought you had healed. And every time your spirit began to rise, this thread tightened, attempting to pull your energy downward. Yet it never succeeded, because your spirit has outgrown the grip of this old attachment. Michael says the enemy does not need chains when threads are enough. This truth strikes deep, because many of the battles you faced were not loud or dramatic. They were subtle, quiet, almost invisible. A sudden shift in your mood without reason, a strange heaviness at night, a repetitive thought that didn't feel like yours, a sense of being watched spiritually, a familiar emotional echo from your past. Not enough to overwhelm you, but enough to drain your clarity. These were not coincidences. They were the tug of the thread. Michael reveals that this thread is connected to an old spiritual doorway, something that tried to follow you into this new season, but does not belong in the chapter you are entering. It might be tied to a past relationship, a deep emotional wound, a fear of losing your progress, or even a moment in your life where you felt unprotected. This doorway may have closed physically or emotionally, but spiritually, a small opening remained. That is what the enemy attempted to exploit. But Michael stands firm now and says, "This thread shall break. This doorway shall seal. This influence shall end. What you must understand is this. You were not being attacked because you were weak. You were being watched because you were chosen. The enemy sensed your elevation before you did. It saw the light forming around you. It noticed the shift in your decisions. It felt the rise of your spiritual authority. And instead of launching a full attack, which would fail, it tried to pull you back through familiar emotional triggers. That is how spiritual interference often works. Not through force, but through familiarity. Not through intimidation, but through subtle influence. Not through new weapons, but through old wounds. But now heaven exposes the source so you can end its influence permanently. Michael reveals the root, a spiritual pattern that attached itself during a moment of emotional weakness in your past. This pattern fed on fear, guilt, or uncertainty. It whispered lies into your spirit that made you question your direction. It tried to make you believe you were alone, unsupported, forgotten, or unworthy. But those whispers were never real. They were echoes from a spiritual interference that no longer has permission to linger. And now, Michael says something powerful. What once clung to you can no longer follow you. The moment you recognize the source, you take back authority. Authority is the key here. Not fear. Not worry. Not overthinking. Authority. Heaven is shifting you from survival mode to command mode. You are moving from being affected by the spiritual realm to influencing it. You are stepping out of the role of being watched and stepping into the role of being guarded. You are transitioning from spiritual target to spiritual threat. This is why the threads of interference are trembling now. Michael steps forward, raising his sword, and the atmosphere around you shifts as if the spiritual world itself holds its breath. He says, "You have grown stronger than the enemy calculated. Every trial sharpened you. Every disappointment taught you. Every battle trained you. Every heartbreak expanded you. Every setback positioned you. You are not who you were when the thread attached. You are not the same version of yourself who once felt unprotected. You are not carrying the same fears you carried back then. And because of this, the enemy no longer has anything to grip. Michael then reveals one more critical truth. The interference around you grew louder recently because the enemy sensed a prophetic shift approaching. A divine opportunity. A major breakthrough. A moment of favor. This is why you felt intensified pressure just before receiving this message. The darkness always trembles before the light breaks. And now he says, prepare yourself. For in the next revelation, I will show you how to cut the final thread and seal your atmosphere once and for all. Your spirit is about to receive the clarity it hath been waiting for. Stay steady. Stay here. This unfolding is not finished yet. Type I break every thread in the comments if your spirit is receiving this. Blessing code 477 is now released over your life. Hold on a moment more. The next unveiling carries the power to free what has been bound. My steadfast spirit, we now cross into a depth of revelation that only those truly awakened can understand. This message tied to November 25th, Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end. Evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately. Now steps into its most transformative stage. You have recognized the thread, the pressure, the subtle interference. But now Archangel Michael brings you to the moment of severing, the moment where what tried to pull you backward loses every remaining hold. Michael begins with a truth that comes like a wave of clarity. Breaking the thread is not about force. It is about recognition. Understand this deeply. Darkness depends on remaining unnoticed. It thrives when the mind is tired. It grows when the heart is unguarded. It lingers in silence, hoping you never discern its presence. But the moment you see it for what it truly is, the power it once held dissolves. You have been feeling the pull of that old thread for years. Maybe not every day, maybe not in every season, but in cycles. When you were rising, it whispered. When you were healing, it tugged. When you were walking toward your purpose, it tried to shadow your steps. Yet it never truly had authority. It only had access. And access requires open doors, not open wounds. Michael says, the door remained open not because you were weak, but because you were becoming. This truth matters more than you know. You were not stuck, you were transforming. You were not failing, you were learning. You were not unprotected, you were being sharpened. Every battle, every setback, every emotional wave was part of the training that prepared you for this moment of complete release. Michael shows me the thread again. But now it looks thin, fragile, trembling. It no longer carries the weight it once did. This is because your spirit has outgrown its influence. Your light has surpassed it. Your awareness has weakened it. And now the final act is about to unfold. He says, the thread breaks the moment your spirit interrupts its pattern. Think about this. Patterns are the enemy's oldest weapon. Repeat a fear enough times, and it feels like truth. Repeat a memory enough times, and it feels present. Repeat a thought enough times, and it feels like identity. Repeat a pressure enough times, and it feels normal. But the instant you interrupt a pattern, the energy behind it collapses. Michael reveals that the final thread attaches itself in three possible areas: the mind, the emotions, or the atmosphere around you. And now he highlights the area where your thread formed. It was not in your mind. You are wiser now. It was not in your emotions. You are stronger now. It was in the atmosphere, the spiritual doorway left open, not by choice, but by past vulnerability. This doorway allowed the enemy to observe, not to invade, to influence, not to control, to whisper, not to command. But in the spiritual realm, even a whisper, if unchallenged, becomes a tether. And that tether is the thread Michael is preparing to break. Michael steps closer, his presence fierce but comforting. He says, "Before I strike, you must hear this. You are not who you were when the thread attached. You now possess authority that your past self did not. Heaven does not break what you do not understand. Heaven does not close doors you intend to keep open. Heaven does not remove what you secretly cling to. This is why the message came when it did, because now you are ready to release what has lingered for too long. Michael shows me a moment from your past, a moment where you were spiritually unguarded. You may not even remember it consciously. It could have been a moment of heartbreak, grief, confusion, loneliness, or deep emotional vulnerability. In that moment, the enemy found an opening. The thread formed. And even as you grew, healed, and rose, the thread continued to attach itself like a small spiritual hook. But now Michael says, the moment you acknowledge the hook, your spirit rejects it. Your spirit is rejecting it now. Your rise is severing it now. Your awareness is breaking it now. Your awakening is dismantling it now. But Michael is not done. He now brings you into the moment of the actual severing. He raises his sword, the same sword that has appeared in countless spiritual visions throughout history. This sword is not symbolic. It is spiritual authority itself. He tells you, your faith draws the blade. Your action seals the cut. Your awakening breaks the final thread. And in this moment, the atmosphere around you shifts. The tension that once pulled at your spirit loosens. The heaviness that lingered begins to lift. The emotional residue you couldn't explain begins to dissolve. The shadow that monitored from a distance begins to retreat. Because what was hidden has now been exposed. And what is exposed can no longer control. What is recognized can no longer influence. What is named can no longer fall. Michael now moves his sword downward, cutting through the thread with divine precision. There is no sound, yet the spiritual impact is overwhelming. Something is released. Something is freed. Something is finished. He declares, "It is done." That which monitored you has lost your trail. You are spiritually invisible to what once tracked you. Your frequency has changed. Your elevation has shifted. Your destiny has hidden you under new light. You have stepped into a level of protection that was always assigned to you but is only activated when you awaken. Michael says, prepare yourself. What comes next is the sealing. Without sealing, threads return. With sealing, they dissolve forever. Stay close. Stay open. The next revelation completes the protection around your life. Type "I am sealed by light" in the comments if this message is resonating deeply. Lesson code 550 is activated over you. Hold your position now. The next unveiling is the spiritual lock that darkness cannot break. My illuminated soul, you have crossed a threshold many never reach. You have stepped out of the realm of spiritual vulnerability and into the realm of divine clarity. The message, connected to November 25th, Archangel Michael says, "I guard you without end. Evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield." Open immediately. Now moves into the phase where the sealing begins. The thread has been cut. The interference has been exposed. The monitoring had been disrupted. But now comes the part that determines whether the break remains permanent or temporary, the sealing of your spirit, your atmosphere, and your destiny. Archangel Michael stands before you with a presence that feels heavier than before, not in burden, but in authority. His wings are spread wide, creating a boundary of holy fire around your life. He looks into your spirit, not your mind, and he speaks with a depth that echoes even into the places you have never spoken about. He says a cut without sealing leaves room for returning. A wound without closure can reopen. A door left unlocked invites intrusion. This is heaven preparing you for permanence. This is not a momentary victory. This is the establishment of spiritual security. Michael reveals that sealing is not the same as breaking. Breaking is the removal of attachment. Sealing is the prevention of reattachment. Breaking is liberation. Sealing is preservation. Heaven does not only want you free, it wants you untouchable. He lifts his hand and shows me a vision of a spiritual lock forming over your atmosphere. It looks like light woven into a barrier, like molten gold stretched into a shield. This lock is not external. It forms around your inner world, your emotions, your discernment, your thoughts, and your spiritual energy. He says you do not seal the past. You seal the access points the past once used. This is powerful, because many people attempt to seal memory, feelings, or people. But Michael reveals that sealing is not about suppressing or forgetting. It is about closing the spiritual spaces through which old battles once had entry. There are 3 access points he brings to your attention, and as he reveals them, you will recognize them instantly because your spirit has encountered them before. He shows the first access point, emotional vulnerability. Not weakness, vulnerability. The enemy waited for your lowest moments, not your darkest ones. When exhaustion whispered louder than purpose. When disappointment weighed more heavily than hope. When loneliness echoed longer than peace. It was in these fragile moments that the enemy tried to slip influence into your inner world. But Michael says, you will not be found in that place again. Heaven is fortifying your emotional landscape so deeply that moments of vulnerability will no longer be openings. They will be moments where heaven's strength rises. He shows the second access point, unfinished spiritual cycles. These were loops, emotional loops, relational loops, behavioral loops, that repeated throughout your life. Cycles where you returned to what hurt you, entertained what drained you, or believed what weakened you. But the moment the thread was cut, the cycle lost its anchor. And now, Michael says, what once repeated shall no longer return. Heaven is sealing the cycle by uprooting the spiritual energy behind it. He shows the third access point, environmental influence. This is the atmosphere around you, the people, the expectations, the pressures, the energies that cling to spaces you occupy. Michael reveals that certain environments from your past had shadows attached to them. These shadows attempted to revisit your present by slipping through the cracks of familiarity. But now, he says your atmosphere is being purified. Your environment is being recalibrated. What once lingered will no longer find you. Michael now steps forward with divine precision, raising his sword once more. But this time, the sword is not cutting. It is sealing. The blade radiates light, and when he places it in the ground before you, the light expands outward like a wave, wrapping around your spirit, your home, your steps, your future. He declares, let every opening be sealed. And the atmosphere responds. The old emotional door closes. The old cycle collapses. The old spiritual tether dissolves. The old pressure evaporates. A shift is immediate. Your inner world feels clearer. Your spirit feels lighter. Your atmosphere feels calmer. Your mind feels sharper. Because sealing is not symbolic. It is spiritual engineering. Heaven is restructuring your boundary so that what once entered will now bounce off your life with force. Michael then draws your attention to something unexpected, your growing spiritual authority. He says you once feared what watched you, and now what watched you fears your awakening. Your presence has changed. Your frequency has changed. Your spiritual identity has changed. The darkness cannot trace you anymore because you have entered a higher realm of illumination. Heaven is not just shielding you. It is elevating you to a level where spiritual interference cannot survive. You are becoming spiritually attachable, spiritually seen, spiritually established. This is the level where battles reduce, clarity increases, and divine guidance becomes sharper. Michael places his hand over your spirit and speaks one final word for this moment. You are sealed. Walk forward without fear. But he also warns, the next revelation will show you what is coming into your life now that the past can no longer follow. Stay with this message. What comes next will reveal what heaven has been preparing behind the scenes. Do not miss the next unveiling. It carries the blueprint of your upcoming breakthrough. Type "I am divinely sealed" in the comments if this message is resonating in your spirit. Blessing code 808 is now activated. Hold firm. The next unfolding shows what is now being released into your life. My chosen soul, you have stepped into a realm of clarity that heaven has been preparing for you long before you ever realized a shift was on the horizon. The message tied to November 25th. Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end. Evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately. Now moves into the dimension where revelation becomes manifestation. You have broken the thread. You have sealed the openings. Now Archangel Michael brings forth what heaven has been holding in reserve. The blessing, the transition, the breakthrough that could not flow while interference was still lingering. Michael's presence feels different now. Not urgent, not confrontational, but steady, radiant, victorious. He stands not as a warrior preparing for battle, but as a guardian revealing the spoils of a war already won. His voice carries a certain calm intensity as he says, now that you are sealed, you must understand what is coming toward you. He begins by showing me a vision of a path before you, a path that looked foggy in the earlier parts of your journey. For months, perhaps even years, you felt like you were moving through uncertainty. You sensed something was near but could not grasp it. You knew your life held more than what you were experiencing, but the clarity never quite crystallized. That fog was spiritual. That fog was intentional. That fog existed because interference existed. Now that it has been broken and sealed, the path begins to clear. Michael says your steps will become sharper. Your intuition will become louder. Your decisions will align with divine timing instead of emotional impulse. And as he speaks, I see the fog lifting from your destiny like mist dissolving in the sunlight. Little by little, moment by moment, layer by layer. What you could not see before will soon become undeniable. But now Michael reveals something many overlook. The sealing was not the end. It was the preparation. Heaven does not seal a person unless something worthy of protection is approaching. And what is coming toward you is not small. It is not ordinary. It is not something anyone can easily carry. That is why the attacks came first. That is why the interference pressed harder. That is why the enemy tried to predict your steps. Because what is coming is too significant to enter your life while the gates were unguarded. He says the enemy saw the glow of what was approaching. You did not recognize it, but it recognized you. This explains so much. It explains the fatigue you felt recently without knowing why. It explains the internal stretching you could not articulate. It explains why relationships shifted suddenly. It explains why certain doors closed abruptly. It explains why your spirit felt distant from your old life. Heaven was making room for something bigger. Michael then reveals 3 categories of blessings forming around you, and each one has been waiting for the moment you became spiritually sealed. The first blessing is clarity. Not general clarity, destiny clarity. Clarity that reveals what is yours, what is not, where you belong, who belongs with you, what path aligns with heaven, and what path was only a distraction. You will feel this clarity rising in sudden moments, like a voice inside you that does not stutter, does not guess, does not question. It speaks, and you know. You recognize truth instantly. The second blessing is restoration. Something that was lost, broken, delayed, or denied is now turning back toward you. Heaven does not allow restoration until the interference is removed. Otherwise, the blessing would be vulnerable. But now restoration begins to move in your relationships, your finances, your confidence, your peace, your opportunities, and even your identity. What you thought would have been forever was never lost, it was preserved. The third blessing is elevation. This is the blessing the enemy feared most. Elevation is not a gift. It is a positioning. Heaven is moving you into roles, environments, relationships, and opportunities that match your spiritual rank. You will be honored in ways you were once ignored. You will be seen in places you were once invisible. You will be invited where you were once overlooked. Because elevation follows sealing. Michael says, you have been kept hidden so you could be revealed at the right time. And that time is approaching. Not months from now. Not years from now. Closer than you think. Close enough that the spiritual realm already senses your rise. But with new blessings come new responsibilities. Not burdens, but awareness. Michael teaches you how to hold these blessings with spiritual intelligence. He says, what is coming requires a heart that remembers. Remember who protected you. Remember what you overcame. Remember what tried to follow you. Remember who you are now. Heaven does not elevate the unaware. Heaven elevates the awakened. And now he gives you one more crucial truth. One that will anchor everything moving toward you. What comes next will not confuse you. It will confirm you. Your next blessing will feel like recognition, not surprise. It will resonate with your spirit in a way that feels familiar, as if your soul has been expecting it. Because in truth, it has. Your spirit always knew what your mind could not yet comprehend. Before this moment closes, Michael places his hand upon your spirit and says, prepare yourself. The breakthrough that once could not reach you is now on its way. Stay here. The next unfolding will reveal the signs, the exact signals that your blessing is about to arrive. You must not miss it. Type "My breakthrough is sealed" in the comments if your spirit is receiving this. Blessing code 1333 is now activated over you. And before you go further, help lift this revelation higher by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this message. When you bring others into this light, you join heaven's mission in opening spiritual eyes across the world. Beloved soul, as this revelation pours into your spirit, remember this: every seed you sow helps carry heaven's voice to someone standing at the edge of their own breakthrough. When you support this mission, you are placing oil on the lanterns that guide lost hearts back into God's covering. The Lord whispers, "What you release for my kingdom will return to you multiplied." I speak this directly to you. If your spirit feels the pull to act, this is not a request but a divine moment of alignment. Just as Archangel Michael guards you without pause, your support becomes part of the light pushing darkness back in someone else's life. Your offering is not a donation. It is a prophetic act that opens your own windows of blessing. You super thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description to place your seed. Step forward boldly. Heaven moves when you do. My ascending spirit, we enter now into the most revealing stage of this divine message tied to November 25th. Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end. Evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately. This is the moment where the signs of your breakthrough begin to unfold. Archangel Michael has broken the thread, sealed the gates, and revealed the blessings approaching your life. But what heaven releases must be recognized. If you do not recognize the signs, you may overlook what is meant to elevate you. And so Michael steps forward again, his presence like a calm storm, powerful yet steady, ready to show you how heaven signals what is coming. He begins by saying, nothing heaven sends arrives without announcement. This is a truth most people never understand. Breakthroughs do not appear suddenly. They announce themselves spiritually before they manifest physically. But only those with awakened spirits can identify the signs. And now that you have been sealed, your discernment is no longer clouded by interference. You will not mistake a distraction for a blessing. You will not mistake a cycle for a calling. You will not mistake noise for instruction. Michael shows me the first sign, disruption of comfort. Not chaos, not suffering, but a gentle discomfort that stirs inside you. This is the spiritual nudge that tells you something bigger is coming. You may feel restless in environments that once felt normal. You may sense misalignment with people you once tolerated. You may feel an urge to move, shift, grow, or transform even when nothing external demands it. This is heaven preparing the internal structure to receive what is approaching. Discomfort before breakthrough is not punishment, it is preparation. Michael says, when heaven moves, your spirit feels the tremor before your life sees the change. He then reveals the second sign, sudden clarity, unexpected moments. This clarity does not come through deep thinking or long reflection. It happens in quick flashes. You wake up with a decision already formed. You feel an answer before the question finishes forming. You suddenly know what is right without needing explanation. This clarity comes because interference has been removed. When your spiritual ears are open, heaven does not whisper. It directs. This clarity is a sign that your steps are now aligned with divine timing. Michael says, when breakthrough approaches, heaven becomes loud in the quiet. The third sign emerges next, separation. When a new blessing is coming, old alignments naturally fall away. People who were part of a previous season step back, drift away, or become distant. This is not rejection. It is preservation. Heaven clears the path before delivering the blessing. You may lose connections you once thought were permanent, but this is divine pruning, not loss. The blessing approaching requires emotional and spiritual room. Michael says, elevation demands space, and heaven removes what cannot rise with you. He shows me the fourth sign, the return of old thoughts, but without old power. You may briefly revisit old memories, old fears, or old emotions, but now they feel different. They feel weak. They feel distant. They feel like something you once lived, not something you are living. This is the Spirit testing the atmosphere, confirming that the old no longer has access. Michael says, the shadows return once to confirm they cannot remain. This is a powerful sign that the interference has truly been cut and that you have risen beyond the reach of past battles. The fifth sign shines next, unexpected opportunities, even small ones. A message, a conversation, a chance encounter, a small shift in circumstances, a door that opens without effort. These are not coincidences. They are divine markers signaling that the larger breakthrough is approaching. Heaven starts small to see if your spirit is attentive. If you honor the small signs, the greater signs follow. Michael says breakthrough enters quietly, then reveals its magnitude. The sixth sign appears as emotional resilience. Situations that once triggered you no longer disturb your spirit. Words that once hurt slide off your heart without impact. Fears that once overwhelmed you no longer move your inner world. This is not numbness. It is spiritual maturity. It is evidence that the sealing worked and that your spirit is standing in its rightful strength. Michael says, the heart strengthened by heaven cannot be shaken by earth. He then reveals the seventh sign, divine timing accelerating. You will notice things happening faster than usual. Delays suddenly resolve. Blockages suddenly disappear. Answers come quicker. Alignments happen naturally. This is heaven pushing your life into motion. Michael says, when the season turns, time bends. This acceleration is not coincidence. It is confirmation. The eighth sign is perhaps the most profound, a growing sense of expectancy without logic. Something inside you knows something is coming. You cannot explain it. You cannot articulate why. But your spirit feels like it is standing on the edge of something holy, something massive, something transformative. This expectancy is not random. It is your spirit recognizing what heaven is preparing in the unseen. Michael says, the soul always feels the promise before the mind understands it. And now he brings all these signs into one clear truth. When blessings approach, your spirit awakens before your life changes. Your awakening is happening now. Your signs are forming now. Your breakthrough is drawing near now. Michael places his hand over your life once again and says, pay attention. The next revelation will reveal the exact sequence heaven uses when delivering major blessings. You must not miss what is coming. Stay alert. Stay aware. Stay present in this message. What unfolds next is guidance for the season ahead. Type ISE the signs in the comments if this message is speaking to you. Blessing code 1717 is now activated. Before you move on, elevate this message by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing. You help heaven reach others through your simple act of light. My advancing soul, we now move into a dimension of this message tied to November 25th. Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end, evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately, where heaven begins to reveal the unfolding sequence of your blessing. You have learned the signs. You have recognized the shifts. But now Archangel Michael brings you into the sacred structure of how heaven releases what belongs to you. Blessings do not arrive chaotically. They arrive in divine order. And today, that order is being unveiled. Michael steps forward with a solemn expression, as if preparing you for something weighty, something ancient, something deeply strategic. He says, heaven never sends a blessing without a sequence. Chaos bursts confusion, but heaven bursts alignment. He extends his hand and reveals a series of spiritual stages that begin the moment your breakthrough draws near. You have already entered some of these stages without even realizing it. But now that your gates are sealed, you can finally see the architecture behind what God is building in your life. Michael shows the first stage, the stirring. This is the phase where your spirit begins to shift inwardly before anything external changes. You feel restless, expectant, unsettled, or stretched. Not in a negative way, but in a way that signals movement. Something inside you whispers, life cannot remain as it is. This stirring is the spiritual engine beginning to turn. It is the first sign heaven is preparing to move your life into alignment. Michael says, The blessing begins within long before it arrives without. The second stage appears, the separation. This is where heaven begins removing what cannot accompany your elevation. People drift. Connections dissolve. Old habits fall away. Opportunities you once considered suddenly lose appeal. It may feel uncomfortable at first because loss often looks like severed. But Michael clarifies, heaven removes what would corrupt your blessing. What is taken is protection, not punishment. You may not understand every separation immediately, but as the blessing unfolds, you will see why God cleared the space first. The third stage emerges, the silence. This stage is heavily misunderstood. Many people feel abandoned during this time, but Michael explains that silence is not a sign of God's absence. It is a sign that heaven is performing the internal alignment necessary for the blessing to form. Silence is where your strength stabilizes. Silence is where your clarity grows. Silence is where your faith anchors. Michael says, heaven speaks loudly through silence because silence creates the space for divine instruction. If you have felt God become quiet recently, it is because He is working, not withdrawing. The fourth stage arises now, the testing. This is not punishment. This is measurement. Heaven tests your readiness, your maturity, your discipline, and your commitment. These tests do not arrive like spiritual exams. They come through small decisions. Will you choose patience or impulse? Will you choose discernment or desire? Will you choose alignment or convenience? Michael says, the blessing must match your character. Heaven ensures you can carry what you prayed for. Passing these tests unlocks the next stage. The fifth stage shines next, the acceleration. This is when things begin to move quickly, faster than your expectations, faster than your plans. Opportunities appear. Doors open. People arrive. Circumstances shift. Delays break. What once moved slowly suddenly speeds up. This acceleration is not random. It is heaven's signal that you have entered divine timing. Michael says, when heaven accelerates, every previous delay becomes irrelevant. This stage often feels overwhelming because change happens rapidly, but this is your confirmation that the breakthrough is unfolding. The sixth stage now becomes clear, the confirmation. This is where your spirit begins to recognize that what is coming is truly yours. You feel peace. You feel clarity. You feel recognition, as if the blessing fits you perfectly. The blessing will feel familiar to your soul because your spirit has been prepared for it. Michael says, what is yours carries the fragrance of destiny. You will know when it arrives. Confirmation is heaven's way of telling you the blessing is not a coincidence. It is ordained. Then comes the seventh stage, the manifestation. This is where the blessing finally appears physically. The opportunity, the relationship, the breakthrough, the shift, the change you have prayed for. It will not look forced. It will not look fragile. It will arrive with stability, timing, and purpose. Michael says, manifestation is the final echo of everything heaven prepared in the unseen. This stage brings gratitude, alignment, and deep spiritual awareness. And finally, Michael reveals the eighth stage, the reassignment. This is the stage most people do not expect. Once the blessing arrives, heaven gives you new responsibilities, new directions, new assignments. Blessings are not endings, they are beginnings. This reassignment is where you rise into the next version of yourself, stronger, wiser, elevated. Michael says, every blessing births a new calling. He now steps closer, and the atmosphere feels charged with holy seriousness. He says you are entering the stage of acceleration. You have passed through stirring, separation, silence, and testing. What comes now will move swiftly. Stand ready. Your breakthrough is approaching with purpose, with intention, and with divine timing. Heaven has aligned the sequence. Your spirit is aligned with the message. And the next unfolding will reveal the one thing you must do to keep this divine sequence flowing without interruption. Stay close. The next revelation is the instruction your future depends on. Type "I am ready for heaven's order" in the comments if this part resonates with your spirit. Blessing code 2626 is now activated. Hold steady. The next unveiling carries the command that aligns everything. My awakened vessel, you have now reached a turning point in this divine unfolding tied to November 25th. Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end. Evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately. All the revelations before this moment have prepared you for what heaven is about to disclose. The thread was broken, the gates were sealed, the signs were revealed, and the divine sequence of blessing was unveiled. But what Archangel Michael brings you into now is the realm of instruction, the one thing that determines whether the breakthrough flows uninterrupted or stalls before reaching your hands. Michael steps forward with a quiet gravity, the kind that makes everything else fade into stillness. His voice holds both gentleness and authority as he says, every blessing requires a keeper. Heaven sends the gift, but you must sustain the atmosphere in which the gift can thrive. This is the instruction many overlook. They pray for blessings but neglect the environment in which those blessings are meant to live. Michael is here to ensure that does not happen to you. He shows me a vision of your spirit now, illuminated, strengthened, sealed, elevated. But around this, he shows a second layer forming, a kind of spiritual ecosystem that must be protected if the blessing is to fully manifest. This ecosystem consists of what you allow into your mind, your emotions, your decisions, and your environment. It is the energetic climate your blessing will grow in. Michael says, the blessing is prepared. The path is aligned. But you must guard the climate. This is the command your future depends on. He begins with the first principle of guarding: protect your focus. Focus is the gatekeeper of manifestation. If the enemy cannot attack your blessing directly, it will attempt to attack your attention. If it can distract you, delay you, confuse you, or overwhelm you with noise, it can slow the unfolding of what heaven has already aligned. Michael warns, your focus is the thread heaven uses to pull your blessing into your reality. Every distraction is a spiritual assignment. Every interruption has intention behind it. You must protect your focus now more fiercely than ever. Next, he reveals the second principle: guard your emotional frequency. Your emotions are not random. They are spiritual signals. When your blessing is near, emotional attacks often try to pull you downward into fear, insecurity, doubt, or comparison. But Michael explains, your emotional frequency must match the vibration of the blessing you are receiving. Breakthrough cannot land in a heart consumed by internal storms. Peace is not optional here. It is strategic. Calmness is not weakness. It is alignment. Heaven moves more freely in a spirit that is steady. He continues with the third principle: discern your connections. Blessings carry weight. They grow attention. Some will be drawn to your elevation out of admiration. Others may be drawn out of empty need or hidden intention. But Michael makes this clear: not everyone can witness your rise. Some can only walk with you until the threshold, not through it. Discernment is not suspicion. Discernment is spiritual intelligence. You must sense who strengthens your atmosphere and who drains it, who speaks with alignment and who speaks with confusion. who carries peace and who carries unrest. Your next season demands relational clarity. The fourth principle emerges: honor your inner instructions. Heaven will begin to guide you through subtle nudges, sudden decisions, unexpected clarity, and intuitive warnings. This guidance will not always make immediate sense, but it is essential. Michael says, when heaven speaks through intuition, it is often protecting what your eyes cannot yet see. You must trust the internal signals. If something does not feel right, pause. If something feels aligned, move. You will not be misled. Your spirit has been recalibrated. The fifth principle is this: do not rush what heaven is aligning. Acceleration is coming, but acceleration does not mean carelessness. Many lose their blessing by trying to force timing. But Michael instructs, the blessing right becomes a burden. A blessing received in its time becomes a foundation. Your job now is not to push. It is to remain receptive, to stay aligned, to move when prompted and rest when instructed. Then Michael reveals something deeper, something many overlook. The enemy attacks hardest after sealing because it knows it is losing its final chance. You may notice small annoyances, emotional flickers, or familiar temptations trying to reappear. These are not signs of failure. These are signals of the enemy's desperation. Michael advises, do not entertain what heaven has dismissed. Ignoring the old is sometimes the most powerful spiritual act you can take. He shows me an image of you holding a luminous sphere, the energy of your new blessing. It glows brightly, vibrantly, pulsing with divine purpose. But around it, I see small shadows trying to reach toward it. They cannot touch it, but they are seeking openings. Michael says, your blessing is secured, but your atmosphere must remain guarded. This is the instruction. This is the assignment. This is the command. He now leans closer, his presence overwhelming in its purity, and speaks the core message of this part. Heaven is releasing what belongs to you. But you must protect the version of yourself that receives it. Your blessing aligns with your identity, not your wishes. Your breakthrough aligns with your spiritual posture, not your impatience. Your elevation aligns with your discipline, not your emotion. Heaven needs you stable. Heaven needs you vigilant. Heaven needs you positioned. And now Michael gives one final instruction before the next revelation. Prepare to receive. But even more, prepare to maintain. Your blessing is coming, but your atmosphere must be ready to sustain it. Stay attentive. The next unfolding will reveal the exact shifts you will experience as your blessing begins to physically appear. Type "I protect my promise" in the comments if your spirit is anchoring into this truth. Blessing code 4040 has now been released. Remain here. You are approaching the final unveiling, where everything aligns. My destined soul, we have reached the final unveiling of this sacred message tied to November 25th. Archangel Michael says, I guard you without end, evil will strike without pause, yet your faith and action complete the shield. Open immediately. Everything you have received so far has been preparation. Preparation for clarity, for awakening, for sealing, for signs, for sequence, for instruction. But now, Archangel Michael brings you into the culmination of all things, the moment where heaven reveals the reality of what is already forming around you. This is not about what is coming someday. This is about what is approaching now. Michael stands before you with a presence more radiant than before, a glow of completion surrounding him. The battles that once echoed in the earlier parts of this revelation no longer linger in the air. Instead, there is stillness, the holy kind of stillness that only appears when heaven prepares to release something final, something irrevocable, something transforming. He speaks, Your season has turned. Not gradually. Not eventually. Instantly. It takes a moment for your spirit to absorb those words because for so long, life has felt like a slow climb, a waiting room, a place of delays and spiritual resistance. But Michael reveals that the shift happened the moment the thread broke and the sealing completed. Heaven does not wait for circumstances to align before declaring a new season. It declares the season first, and then the circumstances bend to match it. Michael draws your attention to your spirit. He says, "You are not waiting for the breakthrough. The breakthrough is waiting for you to recognize it." This is the truth heaven has been leading you toward. Your blessing is not far. It is at the threshold, at the edge, at the gate. But heaven needs you awake enough to see what is beginning to unfold. He now shows the first sign of arrival, internal elevation. Before blessings manifest externally, they manifest internally. You may feel a new courage rising in you, something you didn't have months ago. You may feel clearer, sharper, more spiritually aware. You may feel like the old version of you has shed away. These feelings are not random. Michael says, your spirit rises first so your life can follow. The internal shift is the first confirmation that breakthrough has entered your atmosphere. He reveals the second sign, external alignment. You will start noticing people entering or exiting your life with precision. Conversations may lead to unexpected opportunities. You may receive messages, invitations, ideas, or insights that weren't available to you before. Doors that stayed closed suddenly begin to open. These movements are not coincidence. Michael explains, heaven rearranges the natural world to make room for the supernatural intention. Every shift around you is strategic. The third sign appears next, the dissolving of old resistance. What once felt heavy begins to feel manageable. What once felt confusing begins to make sense. What once felt chaotic begins to calm. Even your environment begins to feel lighter. This is because the forces that clung to your past have lost their access. Michael says, resistance retreats when purpose advances. What once drained you will no longer hold power. The fourth sign comes swiftly, divine timing activating around you. Things that were delayed begin to move. Prayers that felt unanswered begin to manifest. Situations that felt stuck begin to shift. Timing that once felt scattered begins to align crisply. Michael reveals, when your gates are sealed, heaven's timing becomes your timing. This is acceleration in its purest form. But the fifth sign is the most important one, recognition. Your spirit recognizes the blessing before your eyes do. You will feel something approaching, a sense of destiny drawing closer, a sudden expectation rising within you. This recognition is not emotional. It is prophetic. It is your spirit preparing for what your life is about to receive. Michael now speaks a truth that pulls everything together. You are no longer in the waiting phase. You are in the receiving phase. Receive this deeply. Your waiting season is over. Your preparation season is complete. Your alignment season is sealed. Your breakthrough season is active. Heaven is now releasing what once lingered behind spiritual barriers. Heaven is now restoring what was delayed. Heaven is now elevating what was overlooked. Heaven is now accelerating what was slowed. But Michael adds one final instruction, simple, but powerful. Do not shrink when the blessing arrives. Stand in it. Too many receive divine openings only to retreat into old fears or self-doubt. But you have been prepared. You have been sharpened. You have been sealed. You are ready. And now Michael lifts his sword, not in war, but in blessing. The blade glows with pure light as he speaks over your destiny. What belongs to you will find you. What is aligned to you will stay. What is ordained for you will manifest. And what tried to follow you hath been cut off forever. Your new season begins now. Your breakthrough enters now. Your elevation activates now. Your protection is permanent now. Nothing can interfere. Nothing can reverse it. Nothing can weaken it. Heaven has spoken. Michael has sealed it. Your spirit has received it. This is your divine moment. Step into it with the fullness of who you have become. Type "I receive my NEW season" in the comments if your spirit knows this part is for you. Blessing code 9999 has now been released over your life. And before you move forward, raise this message higher. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to help others step into their own divine awakening. Let this light spread across every soul that needs it. Beloved, as you step into this new season, remember that every time you support this mission, you help deliver heaven's voice to someone who is still fighting the very battles you just escaped. When you sow into this work, you are not giving to a platform. You are fueling God's movement across nations. The Lord declares, "Those who water my vineyard will themselves be watered." I speak this to you directly. If your heart is stirred in this moment, that stirring is not emotion, it is divine prompting. Just as Archangel Michael stands guard without pause, your support becomes the light that tears through darkness in another soul's life. Your giving is a prophetic action that releases blessing into your own journey. You may use super thanks, membership, with a PayPal link in the description to plant your seed. Step boldly. Heaven is watching your obedience.